And good afternoon from KCAU-9 News. I'm Tim Seaman. We're interrupting Kelly Clarkson this afternoon with breaking news from the Siouxland community of Laurel, Nebraska. That's where local authorities and the Nebraska State Patrol are investigating what's believed to be at least one and possibly multiple homicides. Authorities in Laurel are expected to conduct a press briefing with members of the media coming up in just a few minutes, and we'll join that event live once it begins. If you're not familiar with Laurel, it's located about 45 miles southwest of Sioux City. A few official details have been released this afternoon, but an eyewitness does tell us that he heard a gunshot around 3 o'clock this morning at this home located at 209 Elm Street there in Laurel. State investigators in hazmat suits have been working at the scene since early this morning. Law enforcement and fire officials, meanwhile, also have converged on a second Laurel residence at 503 Elm Street. And at that scene, it appears that that home has been damaged by fire. Just that home, the second location just down the street from the one you're looking at here. This now the second scene. Authorities have not said if those two scenes are related, however. Laurel police, Cedar County deputies, along with Nebraska State Patrol investigators, all continue to process those scenes this afternoon. An official with the Laurel City Hall told KCAU-9 that they were advised to enter a lockdown status by Cedar County Sheriff's officials earlier this afternoon. Since that report, we have not gained any additional information from there at the city officials or from the scene. And again, we will be getting more. Let's take a look, if we can, from there in Laurel, Nebraska. A live look as we're set for a media briefing from the Nebraska State Patrol. They've told us that they'll come to the microphones at 3:30 to brief us on the latest details on this case. And at this point, there is no official word. Bystanders have told us that they are aware of gunshots and that possible homicides are involved. And we'll hear officially from Colonel John BOLDUC once he comes to the microphone. In the meantime, here's one of those people we talked with earlier today.
It was not something I was expecting. Usually the lady sits out there and has a cigarette in the morning, and I thought that's what she was doing until I heard the gunshot, and then reality sets in.
Again, that's one of the eyewitnesses we spoke with earlier this afternoon, him telling us that he heard that gunshot and then saw a neighbor fall to the ground after that. Again, this is in Laurel, Nebraska, about 45 minutes from here in Sioux City. We've got a map we can show you if you're not familiar with where Laurel is. It's just a short drive from here in Sioux City. And at last word, again, no official confirmation, but there are reports from two different scenes in Laurel, Nebraska of one and possibly multiple homicides. And we hope to know more about that as we hear from members of the Nebraska State Patrol. Again, they're expected to come to the microphone at 3 o'clock. Again, this is the scene there as reporters have gathered between these two scenes that we've just showed you on the videotape there. A short distance between those two as the Nebraska State Patrol investigators will provide the first official details of what has happened in Laurel. We know that one eyewitness we spoke with told us he heard that gunshot at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was a short time after that local officials started arriving on the scene. Several other neighbors have told us that there was crime tape up throughout the neighborhood over a 2-block area early this morning, and that law enforcement from the police department, the Sheriff's Department, as well as the Nebraska State Patrol, all on scene there throughout this morning and continue to be on scene this afternoon. The question remains, has someone been killed? Apparently that is the case, and more specifically, how many people may have died in this incident early this morning, again in Laurel, Nebraska. Two different scenes being investigated, as I mentioned. One where the state investigators in those hazmat suits have been coming in and out of a residence, the first scene, and then the second at 503 Elm Street. That home, as you saw, appears to have been damaged by fire. We don't know if those two scenes are specifically related, but from what we've gathered from multiple sources, it is believed that they could possibly be related. We've had no identifications passed along. The only information we know as far as a possible suspect in this case came from Laurel City officials earlier today. Folks at City Hall again telling us that they were advised earlier today to go into a lockdown status by the Cedar County Sheriff's Office. At this point, we don't know if that has been lifted or if that building and other city buildings may possibly still be locked down. Looks like the investigator there just about ready to go to the microphone in Laurel, Nebraska. A thumbs up. We hope that they are ready as well. They told us that they would begin the press conference at 3:30. We expect Colonel John BOLDUC with the Nebraska State Patrol to be the one talking with reporters and providing the first official information from this incident, again, that dates back on the clock at least to early this morning at about 3 o'clock this morning, the first reports of shots being fired there. Again, we're just awaiting word from the Nebraska State Patrol, as we were told it would begin at 3:30. We wanted to update you on the situation there before we joined that press conference live. And so we're just now waiting for those investigators to step forward, as this has been so far a joint investigation between the Laurel Police Department, several members of the County Sheriff's Department there, as well as the Nebraska State Patrol, all on the scene throughout the day. We're going to stay with this because undoubtedly we'll break away and then the press conference will begin, and we'll interrupt one more time to come right back to it, as we do expect that they will get started shortly. We've talked with several neighbors in the neighborhood today who told us of what that they heard, what they've seen, including the one gentleman, Alan, that we just heard from there. We'll hear more from them coming up tonight at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock as well on KCAU 9 News at 5 and again tonight at 6. Our reporter Nick Wilson has been in Laurel since early today. He's been talking with folks on the street as well as staying in contact with Nebraska State Patrol investigators. He'll bring us the latest report in a live report coming up at 5 and again at 6 o'clock tonight. Again, this was the scene from earlier this afternoon, and you can see multiple agencies with vehicles on the streets, crime tape stretching over not one but more than one block, at least residences in more than one block. Several areas have been cordoned off with curtaining, and at this point, though, there's been no official word as to exactly what has happened in this town of about 1,000 people there in northeast Nebraska. Again, about an hour or so, 45 minutes to an hour from here in Sioux City. We're now about 5 minutes past when this press briefing was expected to begin. Looks like now possibly we could be ready. Let's just listen in and see what they're saying there in Laurel.
Okay, so we'll have 4 people up here. Colonel John BOLDUC of the Nebraska State Patrol, Captain Dane Hicks. He is the Troop B commander for the Nebraska State Patrol. We have the Cedar County Attorney as well as the Cedar County Sheriff also going to be here. Sheriff KORANDA will be up here as well. So we'll have all of them come up here. The colonel will speak, and then we'll be able to take some questions. But as you all know, I'm sure this is an ongoing early stages investigation, so we may not be able to answer everything at this point. So I'll bring them all out, and we'll get going.
I got a question. Can we have them state their name just before?
Yes, yeah, we'll do that.
So now the city, county, and state officials will all be addressing the media, as it looks like they're gathering now. Let's listen in again.
Good afternoon. My name is Colonel John BOLDUC, JOHN-BOLDUC with the Nebraska State Patrol. Thanks for coming here this afternoon. The Nebraska State Patrol and the Cedar County Sheriff's Office are investigating multiple crime scenes here in the city of Laurel. Before I get into what details that we can release and what we need from the public, let me first share a message for the people of Laurel. Incidents like this can shake a community, but I want to emphasize that we have an outstanding public safety team on scene here with a number of our partners to keep the community safe. Here are the details that we can share at this time. Just after 3 a.m. this morning, Cedar County 911 received a phone call about an explosion at a residence at 209 Elm Street here in Laurel. Fire crews responded to this home and located an individual inside. that individual was deceased. The Laurel Police Department, Cedar County Sheriff's Office, and the Nebraska State Patrol responded to this first scene. As investigators were on the scene of the first residence, a second fire was reported a few blocks away at 503 Elm Street. Fire crews and law enforcement located 3 individuals deceased inside of that residence. Fire crews have worked diligently to put out the fire, but also to preserve evidence that may be located inside the home. Our investigators are processing that second scene at this time. In total, we have 4 individuals deceased at 2 different crime scenes about 3 blocks apart. Foul play is suspected in these deaths. We will not be releasing the identities of those involved at this time, as this investigation is in the very early stages. Here's what we need from the public. If anyone has information about this crime, these crimes, please contact the Nebraska State Patrol at 402-479-4921. Again, that's 402-479-4921. Shortly after the second fire was reported, law enforcement received a report that a silver sedan had been seen leaving the town of Laurel. This vehicle was reported westbound on Highway 20. It was reportedly driven by a black male. The report also stated the vehicle may have picked up a passenger before leaving town. Fire investigators believe that accelerants may have been used in both of these fires. They also believe that anyone who was inside the home at that time may have been burned. Therefore, it is possible that our suspect or suspects received burn injuries during these incidents. Additionally, we've been communicating with the local residents and businesses to see if there are any security camera footage that may be pertinent to this case. If anyone in Laurel or the surrounding areas has video that may be relevant, we are asking you to contact the Nebraska State Patrol at the number that I gave you previously. Again, any information can go to 402-479-4921. This has been a huge team effort here in Laurel today, and I want to thank the volunteer firefighters from Laurel, from Wayne, from Belden, and their work today under extremely difficult circumstances. I want to thank the State Fire Marshal for bringing his resources here, the Laurel Police Department, and of course, Cedar County Sheriff Larry KORANDA and his team, who have been outstanding on scene today, as well as the Cedar County Emergency Management Office, who has provided resources for the many folks who are working here today. This is a cooperative effort, but our most important partner in this case right now remains the public. Again, if anyone has information relating to these deaths, we ask you to contact us. Please understand that this investigation is in the very early stages. There's a lot of information that we will not be able to share, but we'd be happy to try and answer your questions at this time. Sir.
Do you expect any drugs involved in any of these incidents?
It's too early in the investigation to talk about cause, motive, and any of those things.
Do you believe that people died from the fire, or was there an incident preceding the fire?
In any of these incidents, we're going to rely on the medical examiner, the coroner, to do an autopsy and to steer us in the direction based on those causes of death. Sir.
You mentioned fires. There's a report of an explosion. Are we talking fires or explosions or both?
Well, the report from the public was an explosion followed by a fire, so we're operating on the information that we've received at this time. Sir.
Are the 2 incidents related?
Well, we have 2 fires with deceased people 3 blocks apart. It would be a stretch to say that there's no connection, but it's very early in the investigation. And we hope to find those answers in the coming days. Ma'am?
To follow that, are the victims related at all? Is there any connection with the victims in both instances?
Again, it's very early to determine that. That's a question that we will be trying to answer in the coming hours.
Are you calling this domestic? Is this a mass shooting? Can you describe?
We are not categorizing it as anything at this point. We have multiple crime scenes. We have 4 dead. We're trying to get to the bottom of it, and it's very early in this investigation. Yeah.
Is there any other description of the suspect as far as looks or vehicle?
The only information that we received from the public was the description that I gave previously. Thank you, sir.
Do you have any reports of gunfire at either of these locations?
The type of evidence that we're gathering and statements that we're getting from the public is going to go into the investigation, and some of those details we're just not able to release at this time, sir.
I got a couple alleged reports that a crime scene down there was so gruesome at the point where some officials actually threw up. Is that the case?
Those are the kind of details that we're just not going to go into at this point. It's very early on. We haven't even debriefed all the first responders, so that'd be premature to talk about that. Sir?
How long do you plan on State Patrol being here?
Well, once the crime scenes have been fully processed and understanding that when there's fire involved, these are very complicated investigations. So we'll be here until we have collected all the evidence that we feel is necessary, but we will be on this case until we have it solved. And we don't know when that will be.
Do you plan on staying here overnight?
We will have resources here on scene probably throughout the night. I'm sorry, I missed that. Did I miss one over here, ma'am?
Is the public in danger?
You know, I'm going to ask the sheriff to talk about that. This is his community, and I think he has some ideas about, what the community can do. Sheriff?
Cedar County Sheriff Larry Koranda, Koranda. To answer your question, the tight-knit community, about 1,000 people. A very safe community. 3 blocks apart, both crime scenes. Don't know for sure if people knew each other, but everybody knows everybody in this small community. I think people just need to be diligent. If they see something out of the ordinary or something they're not used to, please contact the State Patrol at the number the Colonel gave you, so investigators can follow up on those leads. But you're questioning about safe, like I said, if you see something out of the ordinary, please call.
Let's go over here, ma'am.
Just to clarify from the first crime scene, was the individual that was found deceased, were they inside or outside the home?
My understanding is they were found inside the home.
Have you guys talked to any witnesses? Have you heard from any witnesses who may have saw or heard any gunshots or anything?
So we are canvassing the entire community. Obviously, normally that is done from close in, and then we expand outward. And we're talking to everybody that we possibly can and gathering evidence. And of course, in an investigation like this, we don't want to talk about what information we do have and what we don't have, because ultimately we're going to go for a successful prosecution to whomever is responsible for these crimes. Sir.
This one is for the sheriff, because it's specifically about the community of Laurel. Something like this can shake a community, and I know that the State Patrol kind of touched on it in what he read in the first part, but I want to hear from you. What do you think the community should do in reaction to this? How do you think they should handle this?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, Laurel here in Cedar County is a very safe community. It shakes everybody up. Not only the neighbors, but like I said, a small community of 1,000 people, everybody knows everybody. It don't only affect the neighbors or somebody close by, proximity, but it also affects the EMS that responded, the fire that responded today, and are currently still working the fire. So it affects everybody. So yeah, I'm grateful for what they're doing, because until their job's complete, investigation's not complete. So.
Sir.
Is the suggested lockdown over, or does that remain in place?
Sheriff.
I believe right now we're leaving it up to each individual business or partner that did go into lockdown. Like I said, if somebody sees something out of the ordinary, please call that number that the Colonel gave.
When do you expect to release the names of the victims?
So normally we would wait until all family members have been notified, and that could take some time. I don't have a time frame on that. Not likely that that will be today.
Maybe one or two more.
Did you already touch on how the fires may have started?
I didn't, and I'm unable to, because that will be part of the investigation. We know that we received a 911 call of an explosion, and when the first deputies arrived there, they found a house with active fire.
And then did you touch on where the suspect or suspects may be already?
I didn't, because that's an answer that if I knew, we'd be all over it. One more.
I spoke with a witness earlier who said he saw someone shoot and kill someone. I don't know if you guys had a chance to speak to that witness, but have you confirmed, did anyone see someone get shot and killed?
So that's the kind of detail, what we were learning from the public, we're just not able to discuss at this point. Last question, and then we're going to call it a wrap.
Who is the lead agency for follow-up questions, or what do we do going forward?
Thank you. So the Nebraska State Patrol will be the agency that will follow up, so you can coordinate with our colleague, Mr. Thomas, over here, and he will try to help get whatever answers you might need. We do not have another briefing scheduled at this point, but we will likely schedule something tomorrow. When we know, we'll give you as much advance notice as we possibly can. And I'd like to thank you all for coming here tonight. And again, our hearts go out to the community of Laurel. As we talked about, it's a close-knit community, and we will do our very best to bring this case to a conclusion as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Again, you've been listening to a live media briefing in Laurel, Nebraska, where Colonel John BOLDUC of the Nebraska State Patrol has confirmed that 4 people have been killed in the community of Laurel, and at this time they do not have anyone arrested in connection with those 4 deaths. The colonel telling us that the first call came in, as we reported earlier today, about 3 o'clock this morning, a 911 call of an explosion at one of 2 homes on Elm Street there in Laurel, Nebraska. When authorities arrived, they did find one person deceased inside that home. And as investigators were going through that home, a second call came to another home just down Elm Street. And as they arrived on that scene, a fire was involved and 3 additional people were found deceased inside that home. The colonel did pass along a number that they're asking anyone with any information to please use to identify any information that may help authorities. That number is on your screen now, 402-479 and 4921. Again, that's a number that will connect with the Nebraska State Patrol investigators who are now working this case. Again, 402-479-4921. At this time, they're not talking about any possible motive. They have not passed along, investigators have not passed along any identities. They said it could be possibly tomorrow at the earliest. In the meantime, they're advising people in that community of Laurel, roughly 1,000 people, to be vigilant and to make sure to pass along anything that they see that may not be exactly as they would expect it, to use that 402-479-4921 number. They're asking for the public's help. The colonel also, as far as who may be a suspect in this case, the only information he was able to give was that they have been told witnesses saw a silver sedan leaving the community of Laurel shortly after investigators arrived at that second scene, headed west on Highway 20. He identified at least one person in that vehicle as a black male, and that there may have been a passenger that had been picked up in Laurel before that vehicle left town. Again, he also added that those individuals, whether it's 1 or 2, could possibly have suffered burns if they were in those homes, as explosions were reported in both of those crime scenes in Laurel, Nebraska. Again, a silver sedan leaving west on Highway 20, at least one of those people identified as a black male. And again, that number, let's put that up one more time. If you have any information or know of something that might be pertinent, you're asked to call the Nebraska State Patrol at 402-479-4920. KCAU-9 reporter Nick Wilson remains in Laurel. He'll be there throughout the evening, and we'll provide live reports coming up at 5 and 6 o'clock tonight, 10 o'clock as well, if needed, as the Nebraska State Patrol does expect to be in Laurel, Nebraska throughout the evening, continuing its investigation. That's the latest details we have on this very sad situation from Laurel, Nebraska, where 4 people are now dead following homicides there early this morning. We'll continue to keep you updated at SiouxlandProud.com and on the KCAU-9 News and Weather app. And make sure to join us again tonight at 5 o'clock.